Well, here we are. Wasn't expecting to dive back into this rabbit hole 2 months after I crawled out of it, but sometimes the devil craves more blood. So here we are. So when I made the third Sasu video, I expected a variety of responses. The half-assed apologies that didn't acknowledge anything, to complete silence, to the people involved deflecting everything, to people denying their involvement. You know, the whole 9 yards. And well, we definitely got the whole 9 yards and a whole lot more. The initial fallout of the video was well, while entertaining to watch, an overall complete clusterfuck. And to actually grasp the sheer mental gymnastics people had to go through to try and escape accountability, we should start with the person everyone kinda expected to show up, but also didn't expect to show up at the same time. Buttons, aka Kirby, or Kaisermer, or the Piss Gremlin, was quick to respond to the video with a Twitter thread. And you might be thinking, why is he inserting himself into a situation that was about someone else? Because I brought him up for, what, almost 3.5 minutes out of a 32-minute video? And all of those 3.5 minutes amounted to the following. Buttons lying about being told horrible, or valid depending on how you look at it, things by other people. Buttons being treated like a victim despite engaging in problematic behavior, while I was treated like a pariah for far less. Buttons having defended Lolly and defended Skeptical for being into Lolly during the whole Christmas situation back in 2022. And Buttons being reamed, then booted from the group because of his defense of Lolly. And I want you to keep all that in mind because it's important to cross-reference it with the sheer audacity we're about to read. Alright, there's a video out with allegations about me involving minor misconduct, and I'm about to squash them. These events happened before me and the individual were in contact. A mutual contacted me and asked if I could give my side. This is the day I was put in the VC. All sexual misconduct or misconduct with minors is strictly not something I was a part of or condone. But you'll condone child groomers and orbiters, right? I was not a part of discussions of doxing, bribing, or sexual discussion, and I sure as fuck do not condone it. My heart goes out to the victims of Sasu who were minors and affected. This is vile. Damn it cut off. Proof of start of conversation, therefore proof of any involvement in the group chat was after I was contacted that day. Let's set aside the fact that Buttons is fucking lying about not condoning minor misconduct because, as I joked about earlier, he supports Lolly and hung around an orbiter. And he's also intentionally hiding the fact that he was actively involved in the group chat and feeding these people ammo, thus fueling their harassment. Like this screenshot, where he brings up that one time I lied about my age, along with calling me transphobic and bringing up the call where he yelled at me like a screaming toddler because I wasn't having his shit. And yeah, no, if 3.5-year-old dirt is all you have on me, then I don't feel guilty in the slightest. Especially when you admitted to doing the exact same thing a couple of years ago because you were scared of people finding out who you were when you tried to come back. Can we also bring up how funny it is that he's trying to call me transphobic? Me? The very obvious trans person? But sure, let's go ahead and entertain this shit. You wanna know the one time where I was even remotely transphobic to him? When I was 14 and called him by his dead name in an offhanded manner. And it was when I apologized for defending him and going along with a story that he fed me, which wound up being a lie. And yet he wants to try and get on my ass for lying during a time where it was a habit for me due to my own personal trauma. Absolutely wonderful. And then there's the part where he talks about someone, presumably me, sending him, and I quote, anti-trans memes on Tumblr. I don't think he knows Whist is trans. I mean, he did say probably a him, but if he chose to be a woman, it'd be for a costume. But I just rolled my eyes because he's a kid and blocked him. He sent me anti-trans memes on Tumblr, I wouldn't doubt it. Do you believe he's still transphobic? Which is actually a heavy trigger for me. He started to call me its pronouns. Citation needed, evidence required, motherfucker. And also, I find it kind of funny that they brought up this as a point against me, even though, like, the part about me saying that I would, like, get a Bayonetta costume if I identified as she, they was an obvious joke. And also, like, just be fucking for real. Do you really think I'd be a woman just for a costume? But Oh no, Buttons wasn't the only one who crashed out during the aftershock, because we had our good friend Ty trying to defend themselves. You know, the same Ty that was cool with Sasu and Inky making weird comments about a minor's genitals because, yeah, no, I'm not sure why that was even brought up in the chat. And they continued to stick around in the group while they made comments about me being murdered and violated. Again, completely lost on why it was even said. Anyways, after the video came out, Ty found it appropriate to try and cut loose to save themselves. Safe to say that it failed horribly, because it's being brought up right now. Regarding to those videos going around, I don't expect y'all to forgive me, but I changed. I left them alone, I moved on, I blocked them. I want nothing to do with the past drama. I regret deeply and I already apologized for it, leave me alone. I made a mistake that I regret deeply. I don't expect y'all to listen to me, but I'm sorry. All I did was try to help a friend out, but things escalated poorly. I should have known better, but I'm sorry for doing what I thought was right for defending my friend.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment, and I don't expect to be forgiven. I'm simply here to apologize.
I'm sorry. After this post, I'm no longer associating with Sasu. Hopefully, you're starting to notice a clear pattern of these people intentionally being vague about their involvement in this whole thing. Don't worry, we'll come back around to that later. For now, let's go ahead and look at Ty's phrasing, specifically referring to it as past drama, saying that they regret it deeply, and trying to justify it by saying they were trying to defend their friend. Yeah, no. All of those are wrong. Firstly, it wasn't drama, it was targeted harassment against me when I was barely old enough to drive, which included bribing actual children, making weird comments about me, and lying to people in the community about me, essentially severing any existing connections I had while preventing me from forming any new ones. Which leads us to point number 2, the regret. Keep in mind, the harassment campaign went on for literal months. Any regret you could have is null and void when you willingly went along with it, knowing full well that it was wrong. That's why you and your friends tried to cover it up and only backed off when you realized people could catch on to what was happening and start looking at you sideways. And then we get to the final part, where they try to excuse it by saying they were trying to help a friend. That would maybe work if you were young and stupid and being misled by someone, or if you genuinely believe someone was innocent without having the clearer picture. But no, you are an adult, and you didn't just have a clear picture, you had the whole fucking Smithsonian Museum. You were basically there when Da Vinci painted the fucking Mona Lisa. The picture was impossible to mistake. You just went along for the ride and only turned coat when you realized you were in a corner and just couldn't hang around Sasu anymore because it'd be a risk. That's why you waited so long to cut her off despite having over a year to do so. Maybe even longer depending on how much you knew. But besides the obvious lying, the most depressing part is that the sob story actually worked on people, despite them literally admitting they don't know what's going on. So we have Buttons, we have Ty. Who else is trying to lie? Oh, how about the woman of the hour, Miss Winchester herself? So the absolute delusion starts when a user posted a thread on Sasu on September 2nd. This also leads to one of the most backwards conversations I've ever had with a person, but we'll get there. Sasu manages to pick up on the thread and starts to have a fucking meltdown. And you want to know what her defense for this is? If you're going to believe out of context information, then that's on you. You don't know the story on what happened, you don't know the triggers, you don't know anything about what was behind the scenes, so don't say you know everything when you fucking don't. Using my real name, doxing me, and trying to get more arrested is not okay. Bro, what the fuck? Yeah, no, even with the context, it's not much better. That's why I posted all of the context in the description. All 900 fucking pages of it. And guess what? I also left the mega link to the draft of the document in the description too, because I also got my hands on that after the 3rd video dropped. And guess what? That contains even more context that we're supposedly missing, including the addition of more details about what you did on Amino. After speaking to some of the individuals who were present during this incident, here is what has been confirmed regarding Sasu and her underage boyfriend. 1. The minor in question was an Alistair roleplayer met on Amino. 2. While on Amino, she freely engaged in ERP with other minors without verifying the ages of the players until being caught with the minor in question. 3. Sasu knowingly entered an IRL relationship with the minor that lasted approximately 4 years based on the testimony of one of the people around for this incident. And 4. During the length of this relationship, Sasu engaged in phone sex, sent pornographic art, engaged in sexual roleplay, sexted with her underage boyfriend, and allegedly met him in person. When it was brought to the attention of one of the moderators and one of the communities Sasu was a part of, the following conversation took place, which then leads to that whole Amino chat that I ripped apart in the last video. So we not only know how bad her relationship with that one minor was, we also know that this wasn't an isolated incident. She has a history of doing this shit, at least according to witness testimony. While yeah, we still don't have any evidence as to what occurred because it's been lost to time or withheld, we at least have someone else corroborating the story. And by the way, I'm sorry if it seems like I'm laughing at this, because this is kind of fucked up. This is just kind of the only way I can cope with it. This is how I get through the pain. But yeah, there's that, and let's throw some more context onto it, because as I mentioned before, there were 2 group chats, and if we do some basic math, the one I linked contained over 9,000 messages. Who knows how big that first one got before it was thrown into the ether. And let's throw even more context onto it, because there's also the existence of specific chats Sasu made in her server, the same one that she let minors like myself see inappropriate content in, dedicated to talking about myself, Spoken, and Whist. At this point, we don't need to know the story behind it because there's no possible story you can tell that would justify it. Not to mention the fact that I already told the story, and a whole lot more, exactly like it happened. No context cut, no holds barred, no strings attached. And what fucking triggers could you possibly have that justify everything you did? What, are you triggered by spelling jokes? Are you triggered by these nuts jokes? Are you triggered by being exposed for doxing people? Did your triggers just up and tell you it was okay to be creepy around kids? Go ahead, tell us the story, because we're all in the mood for a good laugh at this point. And Sasu, no one doxed you. You told your name to people, and if you were doing commissions and accepting payments over PayPal, you most likely already revealed your name, because if I remember correctly, PayPal just doesn't let you put any random bullshit name. They have to check your identity and compare it with other records. Not to mention the fact that no one posted any identifying information about you. No last name, no place of employment, and most importantly, no address. Not just the street, but also your state, city, province, zip code, etc. Nowhere to be found within the thread, nor was it ever spread around online as far as I can tell. And by the way, Leonette, people are only trying to get you arrested because you're an actual danger to people. You dox people, plan to dox a kid, groomed a kid, talk sexually about another kid, the list goes on. You already dug your own grave. People are just nailing the coffin shut. And the whole out of context thing reminds me of a point I made earlier. The pattern of these people lying by omission. And it gets easy to see why when you look at the replies made to Ty's post, or the sympathy someone like Sasu gets when she half-asses an apology, because they know the people who follow them are stupid and easy to lie to. It's why when they get outed for something, they can just start crying crocodile tears and run to their fans because they're good at looking pathetic. Only thing is, you can only hide the truth for so long before people eventually start digging. The Streisand effect exists for a reason. But wait, there's one more thing I forgot to bring up. From what I've heard through the grapevine, Sasu's been trying to shut this whole thing down not only by saying that it was out of context, but also by saying it was digging up old drama, which kind of reminds me of something I heard at some point, but I just don't know where I heard it before. There it is. So I'm just gonna preemptively repeat the words that I preach to everyone at the start of these things. I don't condone harassing other people. Now, of course, the rules can always be bent if the person is especially shitty, but I especially don't condone it with this person, because part of me is secretly praying to God, I know, absolute shocker, that this person is either oblivious to the main point at hand, or is pretending to be this stupid. So, when the thread on Sasu went up, someone went out of their way to pop up and cast doubt on the whole thing, which is, fair. Or at least it would be if the receipts weren't in videos that were shown in the thread. This, to me, honestly looks like friends talking shit about someone who pissed them off. Now, do I support offering Starbucks money to harass? No, I do not, but is there receipt proof that they actually did it? Now, I will go ahead and throw them a little bit of a bone here. We don't have receipts that they actually bribed these kids with Starbucks. But even then, the mere implication of it that they actually talked about in the group chat should be enough to raise at least some eyebrows, plus the bullshit that I dealt with not long after I discussed it from burner accounts should be probably enough to make the educated guess that they did in fact bribe kids. And then we get to, well, this. Also, if you look at the dates, this is last year's drama, so why is it being brought up at the end of 2024 when it happened back in 2023? So, I said this on Twitter and in a comment I'll bring up shortly, but there isn't a statute of limitations to talking about shit like this. Yeah, it happened back in 2023, but that doesn't mean it can't be brought up now, especially considering the fact that A, Sasu and her friends continue acting like they don't do anything wrong, and B, everything was hidden from the public because the one who was supposed to release a doc containing everything wound up being a fucking snake. Not to mention the fact that I didn't get all the logs from the Safe Universe chat and the unfinished doc draft until after I put out my video. It's not hard to put two and two together. And then we get to the victim blaming and invalidation of victims, which occurred after a lovely bestie of mine, my shared trauma homie, wound up jumping in to say something, and well, it didn't go over well. It's all literally old drama though, why bring up old shit? If it was something she was continuing to do, then I could understand reposting this. Then my friend goes on to explain that grooming is not drama, and it's a form of abuse. Then this is what they respond to. Listen, just shut up. I've been a victim of grooming myself. The best thing is to let it die. It only escalates the situation. I've had a literal pipe bomb sent to me before from those associated from reposting stuff like this. And they said this to a actual victim of abuse. Yeah, no, it's gonna be a yikes from me. And then this person had the sheer audacity to try and pull this stunt in a comment on Sasu Part 3, which they wound up deleting, which is kinda funny. And then this absolute genius tries to shut me down when I respond, despite me being one of the literal fucking victims in this situation. I'm also looking in on this as a victim of grooming and just trying to wrap my head around it. I know for a fact giving this clout is nothing but harmful. And then it goes on to explain the whole pipe bomb story. Yeah, no, this isn't giving a situation clout. This is me coming out about not only what I went through to get the justice and closure I was robbed of, but also talking about what happened to other people as a result of Sasu's actions, and hopefully getting some sort of justice for them. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, because at the end of the day, no one else did a good enough job of doing it except for maybe a few select people. And the thing is, while I do feel for you for what you went through, I frankly do not have much of a reason to feel anything other than that, because you're using what you went through to speak over other victims, and in some cases, telling them to shut up, and in other cases, telling them not to talk about the abuse that they and other people faced, because it's dead drama. And now I move on to the part where I give my final thoughts and go on a whole speech. But what am I really supposed to be saying here? Am I supposed to be shocked that Sasu's trying to avoid accountability? Am I supposed to be upset that Bun's and Ty are trying to hide their involvement? Am I supposed to be angry that some nobody on the internet wanted to try and invalidate mine and a few others' experiences based on that one time they got a pipe bomb in their mailbox? The answer is no. Because at the end of the day, no amount of domestic terrorism is going to silence me, and Buns is still trying to act like they're anything resembling a normal person. Ty is, of course, Ty, and Sasu's someone who should be locked up at the very best. Oh wait, I forgot, I actually do have a little bit of a speech for this one. You wanna know why you're in the position that you're in, Sasu? You wanna know why people are quote-unquote taking things out of context and are refusing to let this die down? Because you refuse to change. You refuse to apologize to the people you hurt. You didn't apologize to Whist for throwing him under the bus, blaming him for your self-harm attempt, and calling him a fucking pedophile. You didn't apologize to Lady G for trying to dox her. You didn't apologize to Momo for slandering them. And you never apologized to me or that kid on Amino for actively treating us like shit. And all of that I just mentioned has turned you into a danger to be around. That's why everyone who hung around you, like Allie and Ty for instance, are trying to distance themselves because they know they're next in the crosshairs when people start wondering who enabled your behavior. In fact, the only people I can think of who would still hang around you are Inky, which doesn't surprise me considering both of you have a lack of regard for child safety, and Bun, which also isn't surprising because they have low enough standards to date you. But let's be honest here. Your inner circle probably shouldn't matter anyway. Because let's think about it. How do you think I found out about the shit you were saying behind the scenes? How do you think I found out about the group chat? How do you think I got my hands on those screenshots from the Amino chat? Because guess what? I always wind up finding out. Whether it's someone scouting your Twitter while they still follow you, or people wind up chattering too much who tell their friends, who then tell their friends, who then tell me. Face it, you are kind of fucked no matter what you do. The only option you reasonably have is to stop hiding the truth and just admit to everything. I mean, it's not going to be pretty and you'll probably lose anything, but let's be honest, they'll find some other artist who draws cringy self-shipping inserts with big tits. Besides, it's not like you'll go down alone. Your girlfriend will go down with you for enabling you and even participating in this shit, and Inky and Al will go down too because they knew about what you did on Amino. No, I did not stutter. Inky was one of the moderators of the Amino chat it happened in and covered it up, and meanwhile Al, a longtime friend of yours, by the way, also lied to cover your ass. That's why he's still lurking around in your circle and tries to backpedal anytime I find out he was involved in more shit. So, come on, Sasu, lighten up. Misery craves company, after all.